Welcome to Tyrompers No Limit Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thanks so much for tuning in to Tyrompers No Limit Podcast. Guys, this is episode number 82. We are always fired up, but today, the first time in 82 episodes, boys and girls, we got a power couple joining us today. And let me tell you guys, I learn a lot from these two. You're going to learn a lot from these two about marriage, about communication, about life. So let me dig in and introduce these two champions right here. My first one, we got my man, Dovid Feldman. He is a licensed marriage and family counselor, a published author. I will link everything he does below. And we've got his awesome wife, Miriam Feldman. She is a published author as well. We'll link everything she does below. I'm just going to let you guys more introduce yourselves because I'm tired of hearing myself talk. So welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being on. I'm super grateful.
It's great to be here, Tyler. It's really wonderful. I've been friends with you or following you for at least 3 or 4 years, maybe more. And, you're quite an inspiration. So you love that positive energy and, a great role model for men and for marriages. So, yeah, we're really excited to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. And you were one of the first big accounts that I followed, man, when I came onto Twitter. So you write those great threads on marriage. You got a lot of takeaway points. I've been a big fan of yours too, man. So that means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah. I got into Twitter right after about 4 or 5 years after I graduated from my master's degree in family and marriage therapy. And, I was kind of doing some work locally, and I said to myself, I wanted my message to get out to the rest of the world. And it's funny how it happened, because when I went onto Twitter for the first time, I just type in, male, male issues or masculinity or something like that. And within a few minutes, I went down this massive rabbit hole of red pill, Rollo Tomasi and the whole thing. And it was so funny because I'm reading all this stuff. I'm thinking to myself, some of the stuff is, pretty good. These guys got something going there. And so I started participating in like the conversations, and I started participating in the dialogue. And eventually I said something to Rollo that got him really angry at me, and he blocked me, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. I said to myself, here I am thinking that I'm going to, get involved in this community. Next thing I know, the king of the community, lets me go. And
I just have to say that every day I was hearing from him, I just got blocked. I just got
it took me a while to figure out Twitter, to be honest. I really thought that the goal was to get in there and put in everybody's face and did all these different things. If somebody sees my thread, I literally deleted 90% of all that stuff from a long time ago,
Man.
And once I got blocked, I kind of said to myself, wait a second, as much as I thought this community was an area that I could help in, I realized that I had my own voice, and I wanted to share things that came from inside of me, not so much reacting to what was being put out there. And that's when I started my Building Great Marriages. That's when I started coming out with my own philosophy and my own way of creating a successful relationship. And to be honest, that's when my account started taking off, because people love, just like as you can see with your account, it's the authenticity, it's the vulnerability, it's the honesty, it's saying what works, it's living what you say, it's showing up online the way you are in real life,
Yeah.
And that's been a big boon for me. And I think people that see my tweets and read my tweets resonate with a lot of the heartfelt messages that I share. It's sometimes I feel like I'm saying what everybody's thinking, but I put it into words.
That's right. I mean? Or what other people on those red pill. And for anybody watching this who doesn't know the red pill and black pill, I definitely want to get into that with you at some point. I get called a simp, a pansy, but these guys all day, every day. Oh, you love your wife? What a loser! These guys are wild. We'll get into that a little bit later, but I appreciate you saying that, man, and I appreciate everything you bring. I'd like to start, if you guys are okay, at the beginning of how did you guys meet? You're both really well accomplished, but give us a love story, man. We're starting on a love journey. Let's hear a love story.
So my love story is written in this book. I wrote a book called God Said What? # My Orthodox Life. We have a very, very interesting journey. We met in college. He was 17, I was 18. We met in the cornfields of Iowa, Grinnell College in Iowa. I see that you went to school in Illinois, right?
I grew up in Illinois. Yep. And I'll actually be in Iowa in 3 months. My
Nice.
awesome cousin, shout out to Caitlin. If you watch this, she's getting married actually in Iowa.
Oh, yeah.
Mazel tov. Yeah.
So yeah, so we met a really, really long time ago, and our relationship had a lot of ups and downs. It was pretty rocky and everything. And we were both like secular Jews. And we would even argue about like the religion and the faith. I was like really not into it at all. Even if people asked me if I was Jewish, I'd be like, my parents are. And for my, for him, he was, my husband's mother is Israeli, and he had like a lot of Jewish pride. So so it's interesting. So we went on a journey that I explained in the book, and we became like Orthodox Jews, and started learning about traditional values. And for me, a lot of the change had to do with just like learning shocking things that I never considered before, but that actually started to make a lot of sense. And especially around dating and marriage and love. And I never heard about that stuff in the secular world. So it was very cool. And then yeah, so
I like to say that our first conversation was an argument, and we both remember exactly that conversation. And then I tell, just to be real about marriage, I say I have a tweet that I put out there, and we've been happily arguing for the last 30 years.
right.
So that's pretty neat. Can I ask a question? And so
Sure.
when you guys are dating, and you obviously you're looking at Dovid, you like him, but then was there an element then that you kind of had to decide, well, if I'm gonna fully go all in, I kind of need to understand where he's coming from. So was that a pretty intentional choice then, and where did that happen in the dating period for you guys?
Yeah. So again, when we dated in college and we had those ups and downs, we were completely secular. It was regular dating. And so it's kind of cool because we have a perspective of dating that way in the secular world, and then dating in the more conservative style.
A lot of people on Twitter, just let me interrupt for 1 second. A lot of people on Twitter look at me and my account and they say, oh, well, you're this religious Jew and you're this Hasidic Jew. And so what do you have in common with me? How would you know where I'm coming from? And what they don't realize, unless they get to know me, is that, until I was, 22, 23, I was completely just like you, Tyler, just like everybody else, running around, no beard, no nothing, just a regular American. And I had like a dating life before. So even though it was many years ago, people asked me for dating advice, and I say the last time I was on a date was in 1994. So I think things have changed since then, but I think that's what my wife is pointing out, that like we have a foot in that world as well. We're familiar with that.
Yeah, so we have those different perspectives. Yeah. So I originally thought like I was like living in Berkeley, California, and I was like a hippie and an atheist and happy and that kind of stuff. And it was a rocky relationship. So we were kind of like on off kind of thing. So was it that confusing? I experienced as a woman that confusing thing of not being married and dating and wanting to, have that commitment, but then it's not really encouraged so much in that world. So then anyway, he got involved in Orthodox Judaism in Israel and sent me a letter that I had no idea what the heck was going on. And so the book is really about my journey coming into even though I was born Jewish, again, like understanding it, the faith and the practices, but coming to it on my own, because it didn't work out too well between us. If you read the book, it's like, and I'd love to gift it to you, but it didn't, like, because it had to be my own. And just like he had to own it, I had to own it. And so that was rocky too. It was not a smooth path.
Which is something that I talk about with my clients a lot, is that, as people say, when I get a phone call, let's just say from a young woman, and she's crying to me over the phone, and he broke up with me and and it's all over. And, I say to her afterwards, I said, well, my wife and I broke up about 10 different times over 7 years, and we've been married for 30 years. So it's over just because there's a breakup. Take a breath.
So what I'm hearing here is it's not just like a Disney fairy tale. You meet, you never argue again, you never have any trouble. There's never ups and downs, right? Not like that.
And then when we got married, we didn't have all the marriage skills that we have now. So that was that was the D word did not come up, but because we had that strong commitment to each other, but like we just did not know how to communicate, like a lot of foundational stuff we were just a little lost with that. And so I think that's why we have such a passion now to help people, because it's like, just like what you shared on your podcast, when you have like certain knowledge or skills, it's like you guys can have peace, you can have love, connection. You don't need all the other stuff.
I love how you said that, like when you got on the other side and you got those tools and then all you want to do is share them, because I resonate with that so much, because when you live in a home that's kind of like a war zone and you're walking on eggshells and nobody's happy and nobody's at peace and you don't sleep good and you always wonder if you're going to say the wrong thing. But then you get on that other side where you feel like you got a teammate and a partner and somebody who really believes in you, and they make you better and you make them better. So what was the biggest difference, if you guys could share what it was like back in those early stages versus what do you do now? What are some of the mistakes? Maybe we got a newlywed couple out there, maybe we got somebody dating. What are some mistakes you could help them kind of avoid, so to speak, then?
Sure. I'll go first on this one, just because I'll speak from a man's perspective. One of the most important, and this is one of the reasons why, I'm writing a book called Escape from the Red Pill. And it's not because I don't hold of, everything that they say, but one of the most foundational principles as a man in a marriage is to provide that emotional security for a wife, for the woman in your life. This is the bedrock of her stability. It's like, I use the example with my clients. They say, if you take somebody and you throw them out the window, and then you try to talk to them on the way down and you try to figure out what's wrong in the situation, it's like, there's no way that they're going to behave when they're falling towards the ground that's going to look normal under any circumstance. And that is the way a marriage is, especially a woman, when there's no security in the relationship. When she doesn't feel like you're committed, when she doesn't feel like you're loyal, when she doesn't feel that you're trustworthy, when she doesn't feel that you're in it to the end, this is the most foundational principle that a man needs to bring to his relationship. And it doesn't mean the relationship is easy, because there's like my wife pointed out, it's just the nature of man and woman that we are going to rub elbows and have difficulties,
and
right?
not see things the same way.
Right.
It's just different brains, different bodies.
But for a man to, if the first and most important principle is that no matter what happens, his wife needs to know that he's there and he's not going anywhere. If she's walking around thinking that if she does something, he's going to leave, or he's quote unquote spinning plates, or, that he's threatening to take off, or he's not giving her the ring, whatever it is that's holding her kind of in a tenuous emotional situation, you're not going to have peace, because she's internally, she's freaking out. So I don't know. How do you feel about what I'm saying?
I think that makes a lot of sense. I actually tweeted out a while back, I'd love your take on this, and both of you guys, really. I said, if you're dating a guy for a few months, or you're getting to that point where you're about to say, you've said the L word, right? You love each other, and you don't feel like he's all in and committing to you, and he'll run. Dude, when I knew my wife was the one, the cost didn't matter, the inconvenience didn't matter. I changed outfits 9 times. Like she knew she was the one, right? Like, I'm pursuing her. And I think when a man really, really knows that girl is the one, P.S. at that time, my wife, I hope maybe she won't watch this part. I was dating a few other gals at that time in Chicago. And then I met her, and literally the next day, after we went on a 3 or 4 hour walk, I text those 3 girls and said, I met somebody that is thank you for your time. It's been great kind of casually getting to know you, but I'm going to go this direction. I'm head over heels, right? And I always tell my girlfriends, you'll know if a guy is super into you, you don't have to ask, is he super into me? He will show you he's super into you. And if he doesn't, then you need to protect yourself in that spot.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I wanted to just say that, so what I love to share with women, because I work one-on-one with women, and then thank God we have this Together program that we do too. But again, I'm with the women, is that there's certain ways of communication, and there's certain ways of increasing the emotional safety in the relationship so that the guy feels safe. And that the way that a woman might speak to another woman, whether it's she needs help with something or whatever, or she's concerned about something, doesn't work for a guy. It just is different. So there's the language of like, I try to get women in touch with what they desire, what they would really like. And then from that centered place to ask or to speak from that languaging, instead of saying, let's go here, or do you want to go on a walk, or you want to join that class, where he might not really want to, but he really kind of wants to make her happy. But if it's said in a particular way, it's not going to be like heard. And so then when she says like, I'd love to go on a walk together, I'd love to garden together, whatever it is, I'd love more help in the kitchen, he hears that in a way that he doesn't feel like he's judged. He doesn't feel like there's, to-do list or whatever. He just feels like, oh, wow, I can make this easier for my wife and hear it better. And then there's like gratitudes and other languaging things and other energy, like even from an energetic perspective, that can make a huge difference from day one in a marriage, so that you guys have emotional safety, so that you can have that good feeling, protection, we're in it together, that kind of thing.
I love that. What you said, that I'm fist pumping here below, is we can't read women's minds, men. And like, look, if me and Dovid, if I have a problem with like, hey man, my Twitter sucks, and I message you, you'll be super direct and you'll be like, well, don't put hashtags down or what, whatever. And I'll be like, thanks, bro. And that'll be it. I don't want you to hint around and maybe tell me this. I just want you to be direct and tell me what I need to do, right? And so I love that you kind of help women, because I think at the core, at least the circles I'm in, and probably Dovid you're in, of guys that actually want to be great husbands. We're not talking about some of those other guys, but we want to do the right thing. And even early in my marriage, when I was struggling, I wanted so badly to be a great husband. I just didn't really know how. Like, I would come home from a long day of work and it's the joke, I'd vacuum out my wife's car. She's been with our screaming newborn all day. She doesn't care about a clean car. She wants me to help with the kid, I couldn't understand that in my head until I had experts like you guys, and we went to therapy and they broke down a lot of things like that. So when clients come to you, do you often see maybe it doesn't take as long as they might think, or maybe they think they're so far apart and you guys kind of help them speak the same language? Or I guess walk me through a couple contexts, you guys. What's that look like? How do you run them through? And tell me some success fun stories that you guys see.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. My main motto, I primarily work with married couples. I work with individuals, no problem, but my main clientele are married couples. And one of the things that I like to point out to them right away is that my job my program is called Recreating Intimacy. Notice it's not called creating intimacy, it's called recreating intimacy. And I do that on purpose because my primary position on these couples that come in is that they already love each other. They already love each other, and that they already think the world of each other. That's the thing. Now, when you're speaking to them on the phone, it doesn't seem like that at all. Okay, it doesn't. It doesn't work
the
that
list
way.
is this long.
Yeah. So
He did wrong.
He loaded the dishwasher like this.
Interestingly, the way I run my program, the way I run our program, is that I meet with them separately. So I don't have traditional marriage counseling where it's like because I always say, why put an angry lion and a hungry tiger in the same room and see what happens, right? I don't believe in that. Yeah. Right? So I meet them separately, and I speak to the man. Usually I speak to the woman first, but either one is fine. And of course, in the first session, especially the first 30 to 45 minutes is just hearing, quote unquote, their sad story, which it is. They're upset, they're forlorn, they feel alone, they feel betrayed,
It's gone on for years.
Yeah, it's gone on for years.
By the time they reach out, it's not a little problem. It's been going on, right?
Yeah. So, but one of the things that I'm always careful to do on that first session, after I hear all the tears and I hear the whole sad story, and for the guy, the anger and the frustration and the confusion, is I ask a question. I say, give me 5 reasons why you love your husband. Right? And it's usually I have about 15 minutes left and maybe 20 minutes left, because she's taken up the first 45 minutes telling me her story. And there's like usually a good chunk of silence there. She can't verbalize what it is that she loves about her husband. So I start her off. I'll say, well, where is your husband right now? Oh, he's at work. So I say, oh, okay, so he works, he provides to the family. She's like, yeah. I said, oh, that's nice. She's like, you know what, that is nice. And I say,
Kind of like money. It's kind of useful.
I say, does he get dressed for work nicely? She's like, yeah. Oh, so I say, he cares about his appearance. Yeah, he does. He cares about his appearance. He's respectful. I said, okay. Did he say goodbye to you in the morning? Oh, yes. He always gives me a kiss goodbye before he leaves. Oh, so I say he's affectionate. Yeah, he's affectionate. So I said, well, why don't you tell me some more? And then she starts going and she starts going, and I have to eke it out of her. But I'm telling you, by the time 15 minutes is done, we've got a list of at least, I asked her for 5, and we're already at least 20, and she could go on for another 20, but we run out of time.
I love that.
And I take this list, and she says to me afterwards, this happens all the time. She's like, I really haven't thought about this. It could be in a decade.
Wow.
And I say to her, if I were to show this list to your husband, would he recognize himself in any of these things? Meaning, when was the last time you shared with him that this is what you think about him? And she's like, always like, I don't, we don't talk like that to each other. We haven't spoken like that for who knows how long. So I say to her, this is our new Bible. This is our new 10 Commandments. When we're talking about your husband, this is the man that we're talking about, because this is how you really feel about him. This is the real man, not the man that you spent 45 minutes talking to me about. This is the guy. And that becomes our guide for the rest of our sessions together. And she'll write him texts every day based on one of these things. She'll talk about him. She does worksheets based on these things. And it's like it's amazingly that, and I don't even, the trick that I find so fascinating is I rarely get into that first 45 minutes of problems. So many times don't even bother going back, because when she focuses on this list,
she changed the frame, right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I know I've been talking for a while, but I do want to share this very funny story. The funny story. So I had the situation that she was a high-powered a medical person, and he was a musician, a musical producer. So she had her session, and I did this exact exercise, like I said, and she had her homework, which was to write him gratitudes and to focus on this. And I check in with her a couple times a week. And okay, so the next day I'm supposed to meet with the husband over his appointment. He texts me, he says he cancels. Okay, it happens. People are busy, no big deal. So anyway, the next week comes around and she's talking to me. She's like, I said, so how are things going? She's like, they're going great. She said, I don't know what you said to him. I don't know what you did, but it's like night and day. He's like a different person. And she goes, I'm feeling so good. We're starting to be more affectionate, and I'm feeling more trustworthy with him. Great. So of course, I'm not going to say.
let's just zip that, right?
I do. So we have our next session. Whatever it was, a communication module, or learning how to be a good listener, a compassionate listener. I got this whole curriculum, and she tells me some of the things. So I felt great. So the next day, I'm like, can't wait for the guy to start. He cancels again. Second time he canceled on me. So I, what am I supposed to do? The guy's okay. So then the next week comes, and the third session, this is my third session with her. I've never met with her husband once. And she's like, this is a brand new marriage.
Oh my God.
She's like, you're a miracle worker. She goes, I've been trying to convince him to behave well for 30 years or whatever, 10 years. And you meet with him a couple times. And I said, I couldn't at this point. I couldn't. There's the silence on my side, and there's silence on her side. She's like, you met with him, right? And I said, well, she's like, you can't be serious. I said, yeah, I haven't even met with your husband. And it's unbelievable the power of, like you said, reframing things, and it's just a great story. And she was the happiest. She's like, her marriage is brand new, and they were intimate again with each other. And, so.
That's such an awesome, I love that, man. And can I segue with this one thing? And then I want to segue to your point of view with a question too, because I don't think how powerful wives know that they are to our husband. And I tell my wife this a lot. Nobody on the earth, like, I'll be honest, if we're done with this podcast and both of you guys are like, Tyler, you suck and we hate you, I will literally say, I love you guys. I hope you have a great day. And I'll go about living my day. Like, that's just, not whatever. if my wife tells me a few things negative about me and puts me down, I'll feel this tall. But conversely, if she builds me up and she does, it makes me want to serve. It makes me want to help. It makes me feel like I can slay dragons, you know? And so, you know, do you speak to women about that too? Because I love that. The guy, I mean, that's an awesome story, but I think it's so true. And too often in marriage, people butt heads and say, well, I'm not doing this because she didn't do this. Well, I'm not doing this because he doesn't do this. Instead of one person just stepping up and starting to be that encourager, that energizer, it can change everything, right?
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah. So that's exactly what I do. So I work one-on-one with women. Sometimes the women are part of the program, which is really nice because then I know my husband's speaking to the husbands so that they can make changes too. But sometimes I'm just working with women alone. And if I'm working with women alone, then that means that it's up to the two of us to make the changes that she wants in her marriage. And so, yeah, so there's definitely the skills to use. And it's like, as a somatic healer, it means, you know, it means emotions basically, and emotions are in the body. They're physical sensations in the body, and emotions are energy in motion. So it's really energetic. So what we're thinking, what we're feeling, that gets, you know, sent outwards to everybody, you know, in our world. So when there's different ways of framing things in the relationship and the gratitudes, then we're changing the way that the man is also going to experience us and our attitudes. What happens is, I explain that men are raised in a male culture where there's a lot of shame. There's just a lot of shame. And we can trigger them very easily with a negative comment, you know, looking down on them, you know, letting them know where they get it wrong. So then we change the energy in terms of letting them know how they're getting it right with the gratitudes, not just thank you so much for taking, you know, out the garbage for the 10th time today because we have guests, but thank you that I can lean on you. Like that those kind of messages, because then he's going to want to increase, you know, doing that stuff. And it's all true. And then when there's resentment, because of course we're all human and we have it, and there's lots of things that he's probably not getting right, then I have skills also. So, and release techniques so that, you know, we can do that together. And I give her the ability to do it herself as well, to release that kind of energy so that, you know, if there's a way to speak up about something, great, but you've already released a lot of that emotional stuff, because women are very emotional. What do we do with it? How do we process it? We've got anger, we've got, you know, fear, we've got all this kind of stuff. So again, let's process it, let's get it out, do that in private, do it in the bathroom, do it in the bedroom, do this kind of stuff to get it out. And then when you come to him, if you're going to come to him and speak to him about something, it's going to be done in a way where, again, that emotional safety is there so that you don't trigger him in that really shame place or that vulnerable place where he's going to want to retreat, shut down, or, defend himself. So yeah, there's definitely things that I do with the women to help.
I love that how you speak of energy too, right? And I really believe in, I've been reading a lot about like frequency, right? So how, you know, you can meet certain people and just tell they're going to raise the energy in the room. They're you know, certain people like that. And so I think you can do that in marriage too. I challenge every guy that I talk to, because people should hire Dovid way over. Like, dude, if you're a guy going into marriage, I'll just yell at you, man. You hire me, I'm like, it's your fault. You go do this. You know? So I'm always telling the guys, like, man, you need to bring the energy every day and raise that. But then if you have a wife doing that too, and you're constantly having that kind of environment, and like what you said too, is changing the lens. How, look, I love my wife more than anything. We're coming up on 9 years. If I only focused on the things I didn't like, I'm sure I could find some stuff. I'm certain she could find some stuff about me, right? But we choose every day, and we talk about this, how we're going to view each other. We want to give each other grace, always give each other the benefit of the doubt, things like that. So when people come to you in this really bad place, do you find often that there's just not the buy-in right away? Or, you know, do you ever have somebody say, Dovid, for instance, nothing? No, like he should go to work. He should, you know, like, do you get pushback from that? Because I'm guaranteeing somebody's going to listen to this that's in a really bad marriage. And what they're thinking right now is, well, I don't. We've been dead for 5 years. We haven't been intimate in 8 years. Like it's dead. When the kids turn 18, I'm gone. What do you say to people like that? How do they take that next first step?
Uh-huh. Well, I think that's a great question, and yes, I have worked with people that are in that, unfortunately, that dire situation like you're talking about. You know, again, it's more a process. One of my principles that I believe in more than anything is marriage is more about what you do than how you feel.
Mhm.
And we oftentimes in the West, in our Western culture, marriage is all about happiness, or it's all about love, right? These are the big words that people use, and God willing, everybody's marriage is full of happiness and love. I only want happiness and love for everybody, for sure, right? But it's a misunderstanding of what marriage is all about. So in
Mhm.
a situation like what you suggested to me, I would personally go back to like marriage 101, which is, and I've seen you talk about this too. What's your mission here? Why did you get married, and why do you want to be married? And I compare it oftentimes to the example of a ship going from port A to port B, and the man is the captain of the ship. There's no I'm jumping overboard. There's no my first mate, it doesn't know how to steer the boat. There's none of that stuff, right? I'm not happy. You're a captain of a ship. Are you supposed to be happy? I mean, it's nice. It's a love boat and you enjoy it and all that stuff. For sure, of course. But I mean, that's ultimately at the end of the day, your job as a man, when you get married, it's a job, it's a responsibility, it's a job. That's why I have a tweet. Marriage is not like a joyride, it's a job.
Mm.
And we got to get back in touch with what that job is. And when we do that job, and we do it well, and we connect with that, first of all, it gives us a sense of purpose. It gives us a sense of commitment, right? So we have to define our job. Most of us get married, if you think about it from a job perspective, to build a family, right? That includes
Mm.
providing money and support for a wife who's going to have your kids and raise your children, right? Take care of you in the home to some extent. She may also go to work and contribute financially, for sure, and to raise your children, to be a dad. You're big into the whole dad thing, right? This is a job, and I can tell that you take it as a job. You don't take care of your kids because it's fun, right? You take care
I
of
didn't feel like it this morning. We took him to IKEA and it was like a nightmare. You just got to do it sometimes, man. You do
yeah.
the best you can do.
So we get back to the basics, and let's let go of this idea, I'm not happy. So what? Okay. Then we go into, okay, now that we're back, we're all on the same plane. I got married for this thing. Are you doing that thing? Yes, I am. I'm provide. Okay. Now let's figure out how to make this, let's reconnect and recreate the intimacy from there. How do you treat a woman such that she's going to be pleasant, joyful, intimate, affectionate, loving? So it's like kind of when you're in a situation like you described, it's not just a tweak here, it's not a tweak there. You really have to bring the people back to the basics of why they're doing this and get them in touch with the mission. And I'm sure that's the same way for health reasons. You do health, they
That was
need.
my exact
Yeah,
mindset is I
yeah.
tweeted the other day. I think the reason I stay in shape is I go to the gym 100 days a year when I don't really feel like it.
Hmm.
And I think, probably the reason maybe you have a successful marriage is you wake up cranky, tired, agitated, but you try and do your best. Maybe just because you need to do your best, not you don't feel like it necessarily, right? That's a great point, man. I love that.
But I'm here for the women where, because a lot of the times the women, when they do feel things, it's really hard. It can block
Mm.
a lot of stuff. So I am there for them to process their emotions, to teach them how to process their emotions, that it's all okay to feel everything and to trust your feelings and to process the feelings. It doesn't mean that the thoughts are true. You could be thinking anything, but the thoughts affect the body, and then the body affects also the mind, what you're thinking and what you're feeling.
Mm.
So I like in terms of resentment and anger and all that kind of stuff, it's like, let's hear it. Let's get it out. Let's process it. And sometimes it even takes them into memories of the past with other people or childhood stuff. And we can process that, because I do the trauma work as well. And then when it's done through the body, it literally shifts neural pathways of the brain. And so that energy is just changed. It's changed. And then the men can feel that too.
Oh yeah.
And then especially if Dovid's working with the husbands, then I know that that she's got a partner who's also making changes, which is really nice. But even if the woman is doing this on her own and trying to make the marriage changes on her own, it's totally possible.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because I used to do the marriage program on my own before my wife, and then I had this one client, this one couple, and I just couldn't get through to the woman. I just couldn't, we're men, so there's a limit to how much they're going to absorb from us. We have a certain way of talking, and you know how this works, right?
100%.
A certain energy that we have, a certain style, and thank God it works a lot, but there was a wall that I just couldn't take down, and I'm just like, okay, I can't handle this. You got to speak to my wife, and it was the first time I had done that, kind of pushed them over towards my wife in the middle of this marriage program, and it was amazing. It was really incredible because I don't know, I'm not there when she does her magic, but it's like somehow the women just whatever was stuck becomes unstuck.
You probably provide a safe place for her to get a lot of that out, and maybe some of that past trauma to actually heal instead of, which is neat. And I think that's so cool how out of a challenge was born this great partnership. If that never happened, maybe who knows where, and then all the couples that are now affected after that, and then all the homes that are changed, and think of that ripple effect, which is so cool, that's really neat.
Yeah. And it's not just the safe place of her being able to vent. It's like with somatic tools, we can actually even process and change things and release energy. Because again, the emotions are energetic. So we have like release techniques for that too, so that it'll just change things. It'll be out of her body. It'll be out of the mind. The healing is in layers. So we're peeling off different onions. And so it's just, again, making that experience of marriage emotional safety so that you can lift each other up, like you said.
I love that. This reminds me of, do you guys know Craig Groeschel? He's like a world famous preacher or whatever, but apparently I read this a few weeks ago, and it reminds me exactly what you're saying. A wife said to his wife, "Man, I wish your husband would act more like Craig," or something. I wish that. And Craig's wife said to the woman, "Maybe my husband acts the way he does because I empower him and I build him up and I do all the, maybe that's why he is the way he is." You ever think about that, right? And when I hear you're talking a lot, I only approach it from the man side. Hey, take ownership, do these things. But I love having a female perspective there too, because man, I'll be honest, if I'm doing everything right and me and my wife aren't clicking, my world feels incomplete, And so to have that woman's perspective there to also be building too is such a neat, I love how you guys provide that in tandem. And it just seems so cool that couples could come to you, speak in safe spots with experts, grow sort of individually as they're sort of coming together. And that's where a lot of the magic happens. Now, I got a question for you guys. Do you ever say, because I have a thought on this, you guys are too far gone. We should just call it quits. You're better off. Have you ever gotten to that point, or do you think outside of, let's say, physical violence, safety issue, all that aside, right? Because I think we can probably all agree if a man is beating a woman, she should leave, right? That's pretty basic. So outside of that, let's say there's no abuse, there's no drugs, there's no violence, things like that. Do you think every marriage can be saved?
Well, to answer that, the last question, do I think every marriage can be saved? Yes.
Me too.
I do think that. However, there's a however there. To go back to your initial question, I've never worked with a couple where they both were interested in counseling and improving their marriage, where I've said to them, this isn't going to work. I've never worked with a couple who has said, we are going to make this happen. We're going to come to you. We want to really try, we're here, help. And I've never said, when they approach me like that, no matter how off and bad it gets, I've never said this isn't going to work. However, I have said to couples who have themselves said, this isn't going to work. I can't do this. There's too much, water under the bridge. There's too much damage. There's too much emotional scarring. I have worked with couples on, choosing other paths if that's what they're choosing to do.
That makes sense.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes total sense. You don't want to push them that way. You're there to help and unite so long as they're trying to help and unite. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
And even if like one person's, it's not like I just parrot what they say. I mean, they have to go through a lot to get me to also be on board with the idea that there's, we do iterative work with, if there's somebody's having a problem with something, I try to pull them back in as much as possible, but at some point, if they keep hitting the same dead end wall, and then I'll speak, let's just say with the wife, and she's not interested in change, she's just like, this is just the way I am, never going to change. I'm not interested. I'm not willing to make that shift for the sake of the relationship. And let's just say for him, it's like a hard stop, like he can't do it.
Yeah.
Then and he's to the point where this is like a deal breaker, and he's really
Maybe when they got married, they said they wanted 4 kids. Now all of a sudden she's saying 3 years in, I never want kids. And he's like,
oh yes,
something like that. And then he's like, I'm not budging. She's like, I'm not budging. Something like that could be,
Mhm.
man, if nobody's budging here and his dream is to be a dad and
Yeah.
hers is to never have kids, that's an issue.
And he's upset about it, and he'd have to be
Right.
upset about it, and it's
Right.
tormenting.
I could see that. Yeah, that makes total sense. I never thought of it that way, but I agree with you.
I see that sometimes couples need to come a little bit longer, like they need the continued support. And sometimes they don't continue with the support, or people don't make the sessions when they need the sessions. It's amazing as human beings what we can tolerate. And if you're seeing like people who like for 8 years they haven't been intimate, it's like that's a lot of tolerance. You know what I mean? Like, and the sad thing that I find is sometimes people do go to therapists, but sometimes therapists, have that battle zone in the office and things are being said and just making things a lot worse, or the advice is really terrible. But I just find sometimes in our program, like we're like 100% there. And I'd love for the people to I'm like, why aren't they making an appointment? They need it, because I don't know, this is just marriage needs skills and support, and we don't get it in school.
Right.
And there's a lot of pressure in the outside world that's just giving bad advice and saying stupid things.
Anti-marriage, and this. I
Oh,
see
man.
Twitter.
Yeah, we're very much like counterculture now to be like, we love one woman and we want to honor her and cherish her and raise a family. Like that's very much like even 30 minutes ago on Twitter, I got called an idiot for loving one woman. And I'm like, he's like, why would you have one when you could have 4 or 5? I'm like, bro, I'm trying to figure out all day, that's all I need right there.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. It is wild how that is counterculture all of a sudden, but to me, it just makes sense to build a partnership, to get to know that person, to keep dating. And I mean, you guys are how many years in?
30 plus.
Yeah.
Over
I
30.
mean, that's bravo. That's amazing. So
we made it.
Well, it's so neat I'm sure you're still growing and learning things and getting better at all this stuff, which is the neatest journey, right? And so I put you on the spot, top 30. No, I'm just kidding. We won't do that. You see these Twitter threads. I've been married 37 years, top 37 pieces of advice. But maybe you guys could give us your top few pieces of advice and wisdom you could share from counseling all these couples. Hey, what are some things to avoid the pitfalls of getting there? And then if you do feel stuck, maybe what are some ways to get out?
Okay, I'll go first. Unless do you have something?
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, one of the things that I like to, when you said avoid the pitfalls, remember that you just said that. So one of the principles that I teach, that I work with on men, is that, and now not everybody agrees with me on this, but I think it's important, that fighting is kryptonite to your marriage. Okay, that's not disagreements, but fighting is kryptonite to your marriage. We want to stay away from fighting. Most of the worst damage, in my opinion, you said how to avoid the pitfalls. So most of the worst damage is done when people have escalated fights that just spiral out of control, and people say and do the worst possible things. So one of the first principles, the first thing is, of course, the positive, which is the gratitude and learning to appreciate. But shortly after that, everybody that works with me gets the lecture and gets the worksheet and all that stuff about staying away from negativity. That means criticism, being condescending, raising your voice, negativity, fighting, altercations. This stuff must be eliminated from your marriage. Most men have no idea how to do this, because when, and I know my wife is here, you're lucky your wife isn't going to maybe not even watch us, but men do not speak to other men the way women speak to men. Okay. And they are the experts, right? We just dope around with each other for the first 20 years and then we get married. Women are starting at a very young age to learn how to, emotions is their realm. Communication is their realm. The Jewish Talmud says that God gave 10 portions of speech to the world. 10 portions of speech to the world, 9 of which he gave to women, and only 1 of which he gave to men.
I love that.
So we are most men I know are like deer in the headlights. When their woman opens up and lets go on them, they are like deer in the headlights, right?
Like, what did I do wrong? Why are you
Oh
talking?
yeah. They don't anything they say, they get back 100 times worse. And so I work with men right away, setting boundaries, right? I'm sorry, this conversation has gotten a little too heated for me. Let's pick it up another time. I see that you're angry. I see that we're fighting. That's going to ruin our relationship. Let's pick this up. You know what I mean? There's different ways.
So wise, yeah.
It's just, you need to draw the line before things get out of control.
But then I have a release technique for the women because they do feel out of control. But what can they do with it? Just do it. It's like letting the steam out, but do it in private. Because if you explode on your husband, you're going to shame him. He's going to retreat. He's going to attack. It's just, attack verbally. It's just not worth it. You're not going to have the communication that you want, but you don't need to necessarily keep it inside either. So, so that kind of lack of communication doesn't work.
Negativity, that's my first, go-to. And then, how do you get back into it? Like I said earlier, there's 3 things that are the foundations of a loving marriage. Kindness, gratitude, and affection. Those are the 3 things that will bring a relationship back into a state of joy, peace, and harmony. So kindness, affection, and gratitude.
I love that.
Yeah, if we work on those things, I promise it's like guaranteed. It's like compound interest. You just keep doing it. And one of the things that I have the men do is they bring flowers every Friday. You've seen me have those little tweets, right? So I have this story that, one of my clients, I said to him, okay, Friday flowers, don't forget. And he's like, it's not going to work. And I said, you got to do it. I promise you it's not going to work. I said, just do it. So he goes and brings the flowers. She takes the flowers from him and she right into the garbage can. First week. So I spoke to him on Sunday. I said, what happened? He's like, I said, send me the picture of your Friday flowers. And he shows me the picture of the flowers in the garbage can. So the next week comes and I said, you gotta Friday flowers. I said, are you kidding me? I don't want to say. I said, Friday flowers. He did it. And this week she took it and she didn't do anything with it. She put it on the countertop, no water, no nothing. She just let him, improvement. By the 3rd week, she didn't unveil everything, but she put it in some water. And by the 4th week, he forgot to bring it. And she says to him, where are my flowers? Now he's in trouble for not bringing the flowers. But this is the way it works. You got to keep showing up. Like you did exactly what you said. You take responsibility, keep showing up, and in those 3 areas.
Yeah. One thing that I want to say, and we've shared this before, but it's so important. When a woman's starting to get like revved up about like something, and she's talking a lot about it, or and it's something with the kids or something in her career, whatever it is, one of the things that the question to ask her is, what are you afraid of? And then when that question is asked, her nervous system just settles. She drops into her emotions, and then she can just say, I'm afraid of this, this, and that. And then he can hear her. Because what happens is sometimes men and women go at it with the brain. Like, he tries to make sense of what she's saying, and then she's arguing with him. That's not going to work. But if he says, what are you afraid of? Then she can immediately drop into her, her emotions and just share that fear. And then, and then it's just so much, again, it changes the energy and that interaction, and they can become closer and connect. So that's something that's really, yeah, that's something
He
that's
can
really
probably
good.
use his masculine to come comfort in that fear and
Yeah,
let her know it's going to be okay, and provide that stability that
yeah,
Dovid talked about, right? That's the yin and the yang at its best, probably.
yeah,
I
yeah,
love
it's so
that.
true. Yeah, and then I teach women to get into what their desires are, to like put themselves in the center, and just to like even keep a desire to like I'd love this, I'd love that. And it could be like, fantasy island. It doesn't have to be like whatever it is, like I love a new car, whatever it is. Um, and so that also, because then from there they can say to their husbands, I'd love this, or I'd love a walk together. I'd love, one time we were in an Uber together, and my husband is like, how opposites attract. So he doesn't put the seatbelt on. I always do. And so I wanted a seatbelt on, because I have like disaster ahead if he doesn't have a seatbelt on. So then I say, could you get your seatbelt on? And then I said to him, how could I say that in the way of desire? Like I'd love or I'd like without the word you. So he said, you could say, I'd love your seatbelt on. And I thought, does it really make a difference to say it that way? And he said, yes, it does, because then I just feel cared for. So it's like such a simple thing, but like makes a difference. When a woman and a man are together, the guy's driving and she says, oh, there's a parking spot, go park there, go park there. And it's like he feels controlled by that. But a woman would never think that way. But in the male culture, another man would never tell his friend where to park.
That's so true. Get out. You
That's
get
really-
out. We'd kick him out of the car, man.
It's not
like, what the heck?
so again, she taps into her desires, that she'd like maybe a close parking spot because it's, she's got heels on or something. So she could say, I'd love a close parking spot. And then he hears that in that way, not in a controlled way, not in a bossy, naggy way. And then he's just like, finds that he wants to make her happy. So he'll find that parking spot,
That's like so many light bulbs are going off. I say that because I'm picturing myself in the back seat, and if my wife says, "Put your seatbelt on," I'm like, "What are you, my mom?" Like that's gonna cause a thing, But if she really said, like, "I'd love it if you had your seatbelt on because I love you and I don't want anything to happen to you,"
Oh my
Dude, I'm
gosh.
putting that thing on all it's crap coat, like I want to do it for
Yeah.
her. That makes and it's the same thing. But
Yeah.
that's so true. And I love that example. No guy would ever tell another guy. That's so true.
So I share that with women.
Yeah.
I share that with women because we don't get it. Just like you
It's
guys
funny because she told me that if she gave me the opposite example. She says that if there was a bunch of women in a car and one of them saw a parking spot and said, "Oh, park over there," all the women would be like, "Wow, you're the greatest! This is terrific! I'm so happy you're with us." It's so opposite of the way we communicate.
Yeah, it's so true. I tweeted the other day that I've gotten the gift of being kind of a stay-at-home, work-from-home dad these last couple of years, that I go to parks every day or playlands, and I hear moms talk a lot. And so I'm a pretty observant guy, and I'm very ADD, so I can pick up on things that are going outside. And the funniest thing I'll notice, there'll be a group of moms, and it's always like one mom saying like, my husband's been traveling, the house is a mess, I feel frazzled, right? And all the women are like, "Oh, Sherry, you're doing amazing. You're such a great mom." And then they move, and then the next mom's like, "Little Teddy's been in trouble at school. He's sick." And then the moms are like, "Oh, but you're the best mom. You're giving him this and that." And around the circle they go. And I'm sitting there like, I got a YouTube video you can watch on parenting. I gotta, I can fix this, right? But it was really a light bulb for me that a lot of women don't need stuff fixed. They just want to get out and get that validation, and kind of that's how you guys bond and connect. And so that's been a cheat code for me with my wife. I wrote in an entire notebook about 3 years ago, do not fix, validate. Do not fix. 1,500 times I wrote this because it's my pea brain still wants to go to that. But I think men and women do just communicate so different. And it's often that we love each other. We really want to try and connect. We just don't know how. And I love that you guys can bring expertise around this. And it's got to feel great to save marriages and see people come to you on the brink of this disaster, and the kids, and thinking where their lives could go this way or this way. Man, now you get to bring them together. There's got to be no better feeling in the world, right?
Right. Yeah. I get off the call sometimes and I'm just like, wow, it's so amazing. It's so amazing. And as we're talking about, it's not even huge shifts. It's different languaging, different energy. It's also releasing the resentment. So you don't have to ignore or suppress your own stuff. But it's like, that's why it's like, oh my gosh, we got to get out there and we got to you know, even with when couples are dating, like if we can just even give them marriage minded or skills or something, just because why have the dirt if you don't need it?
Why isn't that more of a thing, you know? Like when people are like, why aren't we teaching a lot of these practical great skills, you know? Like that makes sense. If I had known some of this stuff coming in, I wouldn't have been almost divorced with my now wife, you know? Like if I had known some of these things, it would have been great. But maybe that's something you guys can, I don't know, some dating, let's put together a dating package for you guys and we'll promote on my Twitter or something, you know?
Okay. Okay.
I do want to ask a couple questions. I want to get into the red pill, black pill, but I first I kind of want to go to you, Miriam, and ask a question because my wife is a PhD. She's very independent, a strong woman. I love that about her. And I kind of get some crap sometimes from guys, you know, and I very much believe in a man should lead. And you know, when I plan dates, I tell her what we're doing. Hey, we're going here, we're doing this, right? But I take it you're a very strong, independent woman. You're obviously very intelligent, things like that. How do you then, I guess, give segue towards leadership? And Dovid, I could ask you too, how do you still empower that really strong woman and let her be herself, but still take the lead? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah, I know for me, like, I guess we have certain areas, and sometimes like I've got this intuitive sense of things, and he kind of really loves that insight. And then sometimes he's got the intuitive insight, and so we just kind of either problem solve together or something. But yeah, I guess it's just respecting each other, liking each other, enjoying each other's opinions and trusting each other, and hearing each other's like emotional realm and what's going on for them. I guess it like you can be smart, but again, it's not the battle of the brain. So sometimes I'll know that I don't want to deal with a certain something either with the kids or with their schools or something, and I want to lean on him. I want him to take charge of that. And I'll ask him to do that again in the way of I'd like or I'd love without the word you. It's like, so it's not just another to do, but it's like a desire that I have, you know, this will make me really nervous or something. And then I kind of lean on him that way. Or let's say I'd like to go out to a restaurant. So I'd say, I'd love to go out and I'd like that restaurant, you know? So again, I lean into my desires, knowing what I want. And then I communicate them in that way without saying, let's go. Do you want to go? It's that I'd love to go to this restaurant. I'd love a date night Wednesday, you know, so that's really helpful too, again, coming from that place of desire. And then I expect him to kind of make, you know, the reservations. And so it works like that. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, you know, I think this is a very, you know, we could have a long podcast about this too, because I know you're Christian, and this to me is like a big topic. You know, I think it's a very fascinating one. On Twitter, I don't really spend a lot of time around other Jewish people. Most of the people that I'm friends with on Twitter are Christian and, you know, more conservative Christians. And I find this comes up quite a bit, this idea of kind of like submission and a wife, like the feminine and submission, right? That probably comes up quite a
Yeah, I think people twist it a lot too, from my frame anyway. I'm anxious to hear your take, but I do see a lot of Christian men that like basically think their wife needs to serve them. And when I read the text in scripture, it's the exact opposite. You're supposed to basically treat your wife as Christ treats the church. You would die for her in a second, you serve her, you know, you lead with love, compassion, all these things. But I think a lot of guys twist a couple little verses in there to make it like get my sandwich, you know, kind of like towards that, when I think it's the exact opposite actually.
Yeah. Well, one thing which I think that the Jewish religion kind of uniquely brings to the table is this concept that when God created feminine and masculine, he gave each one what I would call a sphere of influence. And part of marriage is kind of figuring out that your areas of responsibility associated with a masculine nature and your sphere of influence, right? So when I can spend my time on mine and give her the space to be hers without me feeling like I have to cross that line and have anything pretty much to do with her sphere of influence, that creates what I would call a more healthy dynamic between each other, like an interdependency, as Stephen Covey likes to say, between our roles. So there's certain things in life that I know this is going to sound like totally beta, but there's certain things in life that I submit to my wife on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
My wife is way better at some things. That's just, like, but I get crap for this too online. I really do. But I agree with you. I mean, dude, it'd be silly for me not to admit my wife is 1,000 times better at 100 things than I am. So why would I not trust her judgment fully,
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
so
and vice
just one
versa.
thing,
Yeah.
with Judaism, it says that a man needs to honor his wife more than himself, and then a woman will respect her husband. So there is that, doesn't talk about submission.
So it's like a love and respect type thing.
Yeah, and recognizing that like that the woman is the crown, and also and the man is the leader and the king, but it's like there's a reciprocal and then sphere of influence, and so there's that respect and that working together.
Very, very important. And it's a my opinion, it's a much healthier way of viewing, like, the longer you're married, the more you come to appreciate your wife's feminine strengths. That's a very important thing. I was once on the Jesse Peterson podcast years ago, and he was I don't know if you know who Jesse Peterson is. He's a famous okay. Anyway, so he was trying to corner, he's very masculine, trying to corner me into, a certain position about masculinity over femininity. And I was trying to explain to him that, like, the Bible is replete with stories of how the women in many circumstances saved the day, and yet at the same time, men are considered the leaders. So it's not that we give up our leadership role. It's just that part of our leadership role, as just like a CEO of a company or the president of the United States, has to recognize that the people that he's partnered with, many of them have expertise which supersedes theirs. And there has to have that trusting relationship where it's like, okay, I'm going to go out there and face the public because I'm the president, but please tell me what to say so I don't screw up. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's a brilliant way to put it. And I'd say that's exactly. And in fact, in our marriage, just a few days ago, I had a pretty big business decision going one way. And so I wrote out kind of, hey, here's some stuff I'm thinking of. I took it to my wife and said, you have a unique lens. I trust your intuition. Again, and she came back with me with a lot of great insights. And she said to me, it's your call, but here's my insights. I went with what she said, to be quite honest. I think she brings a different lens that sometimes I can get a tunnel vision, right? And so I do respect that. I don't know why that's controversial on Twitter. I don't understand that. It blows my mind that, even with schools, my wife is, again, brilliant, and she researched the school that our kids are going to go to. Right. I didn't spend a second on it. So why would I argue with her and say this school? I trust her fully, right? And the longer we're together, we're coming up on 9 years, the more I lean into her on a lot of these big decisions. And the more I see her leaning into me she's the CEO of a small nonprofit. She will pull me aside and say, am I not seeing something here? Hey, here's the facts. Do you want to talk through this, right? And I think that's a great, healthy relationship. It's not a guy beating a woman down to where she feels so terrible about herself that I don't understand that whole red pill, black pill stuff. I've asked a couple of those guys to come on my podcast and just explain it, because I'd like to know the benefit to them, even to me, when my wife's doing great, I'm doing great. I want her to be living the best life she can, because that's going to affect me the best too, right? So I've never understood that. I love the way you put that, though, how a president sees other people that have expertise in other areas and leans into them. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, guys, man, I just glanced at the time, and my editor always tells me to keep these at 45 minutes. We've been going like an hour 15. I could sit here and talk to you guys forever. I want to plug all your stuff, though, before we go, man. And I will link everything that Dovid and Miriam do below. Check out their books, man. Follow them on Twitter. Check out their websites. I'm telling you guys, they're great people, great follows. Obviously, if you've been watching, you know this. But give them some love, man. They put out so much great content. They're just here to help people. And again, tell everybody where they can find you, and give yourselves a good little pitch here on the way out.
Go first.
So you can find me at miriamrachel.com. That's MIRIAMRACQUEL.com. And then there's also yourmarriagemagic.com. And that's where I can be found to do one-on-one somatic sessions with women. It's all done over the phone. and not even on Zoom. And yeah, we can just get healthier marriages, healthier women, and healthier in careers as well, because we tap into the intuition and we release like stuck energy as well. And then also my book is God Said What, and so that can be found also if they go to the websites, or it's on Amazon. So
yes, that's my wife. And all my action, my fun stuff is on Twitter at my first name, last name, at Dovid Feldman, DOVID, but you'll put that in the links. And that's where most of my, if you want to get to know me and understand my philosophy, it's really there. I have a treasure chest of great blog posts on my website, which will be linked below. Lots of really important marriage principles that I think really will open up men's and women's eyes into any aspect of relationship, whether it's communication, listening, how to handle breaking up, how to find your soulmate. Do you have a soulmate? All different range of how to be a good father, a good parent, different aspects of whose jobs things are in relationships, this concept of submission. I have an article called, Who's the Boss in Your Relationship? A lot of fun stuff on there if you want, just on my blog. But I did one thing that I thought was really great, and I'm starting really getting into writing books. And so I just came out with a new book called 52 Tweets to a Great Marriage. And
I love that.
Yeah. And so what I think is really great about this book is that oftentimes I will write tweets and I'll have a lot that's going into that tweet in my mind. It could be something that I just learned in Jewish mysticism. It could be something from a conversation with a client. And you only have 280 characters. And so I try to convey it. But there's a lot that's not there. And I wrote a book called 52 Tweets to a Great Marriage, where I took some of my best tweets and I wrote in long form. I have the tweet on top and a whole explanation of what this is, with client examples, with practical tips, and how to implement this tweet in your life. And it's just really fantastic.
That's really cool, man. That's awesome. I'm gonna check that out, man. That's super cool. Well, dude, I commend you guys so much. I think that the way we really change the world is by having on-fire marriages and homes and raising great kids in stable, safe, good environments. And you guys are at the forefront of that, doing that every day. So I really thank you guys, bottom of my heart, for coming on, man. I'd love to get you on again at some point. Just make you regulars, come on every so often, because I can't lose an hour 15, man. I glanced down, I'm like, it's probably been 40 minutes. Okay. But I thank you guys again. Again, guys, everything we do, we're going to link below. Give these guys some love. Check them out. If you like what they've said, just fire them a D. Everybody likes hearing that, you took something away from their stuff. So fire them a comment. Give them some gratitude. Go text your spouse some gratitude, guys. Have the greatest day. Go be kind to yourself. Go be kind to others. Thanks for listening to Tyrompers No Limit Podcast, episode 82. Go have the greatest day of your life, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.